Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if you told a friend today that you found a quarter, just a regular 25-cent coin, sitting in your old change jar, and that coin turned out to be worth $115 million? Would they believe you? Because today that's exactly the kind of story we're telling, and it starts with a coin that most Americans have touched, spent, or tossed. Aside without a second thought, the 2014 Arches National Park Quarter. A coin from the America the Beautiful series, struck at the Denver Mint, and on the surface it looks like any other quarter you've ever seen, George Washington on the front, a beautiful landscape on the back. But hidden within a very small number of these coins is something so extraordinary, so breathtakingly rare, that the most serious collectors in the world would do almost anything to get their hands on one. And when we say the value reaches up to $115 million, we are not exaggerating, we are not clickbaiting. We are telling you the raw, unfiltered truth about what this coin can be worth under the right circumstances. And right now, before we go any deeper into the story of this coin, we need to make something very clear. There are two more coins coming later in today's video, and what I can tell you without giving anything away is that each one of those coins carries a story even more jaw-dropping than the last. The second coin is going to make your heart race, and by the time we get to the third and final coin, you are going to be absolutely stunned. So do not click away, do not skip ahead, because every single second of this video is building towards something truly unbelievable. Now let's get back to the 2014 Arches Quarter and unravel the full, fascinating, almost unbelievable story behind this incredible coin. The year is 2014, and the United States Mint is deep into its beloved America the Beautiful Quarters program. A series launched in 2010 that was designed to honor the stunning national parks and federal lands across the country. Each year a new set of 5 designs would be released, each one celebrating a different natural or historical treasure of America, and in 2014, one of those featured designs was dedicated to Arches National Park in the great state of Utah, a place of towering red sandstone arches, ancient geological wonder, and absolutely breathtaking natural beauty. The design chosen for this quarter was nothing short of spectacular, depicting the iconic delicate arch, one of the most photographed and recognized natural landmarks in the entire United States, standing tall against a sweeping Utah sky, and the coin itself, struck at the Denver Mint with the distinctive D mint mark, was produced in enormous quantities. Hundreds of millions of coins were made, flooding into circulation across the country, and for the average person walking into a grocery store or gas station, this quarter was just that, a quarter, 25 cents, used to buy a candy bar or dropped into a tip jar without a second glance. But here's where the story takes a turn that will make your jaw drop, because buried within the massive production run of the 2014 Arches Quarter were a tiny, almost impossibly small number of coins that were struck with errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, so utterly unlike what they were supposed to look like, that coin experts and numismatists literally gasped when they first encountered them. And the most valuable of these errors involves something called a double strike OFF center error combined with what some specialists have identified as a die CAP anomaly. Now let's break that down, because understanding the error is what makes the value make sense. When a coin is being struck at the mint, it goes through a highly controlled mechanical process where a blank piece of metal, called a planchet, is fed between 2 dies, an upper die and a lower die, and those dies come together with enormous pressure to stamp the design into the coin. Normally this process works perfectly, and the coin comes out exactly as designed, but every so often something goes wrong in the machinery, a planchet gets stuck or feeds incorrectly, or a die begins to cap and warp from the heat and pressure, and when that happens, the coins that come out of that machine are not what they're supposed to be. They're something entirely different, something bizarre and beautiful and incredibly rare. And in the case of the most valuable 2014 Arches quarters, what happened was essentially a perfect storm of minting catastrophe. The planchet was struck not once but twice, and on the second strike it was dramatically off-center, meaning the design was smeared and displaced across the coin's surface in a way that created an almost artistic, almost surreal double image, and on top of that, the die itself had begun to show signs of capping, which means the metal from a previously struck coin had adhered to the die and was being transferred onto subsequent coins, creating ghostly, layered impressions that no two coins share exactly, and the result, the absolutely mind-bending result, is a coin that looks like it came from another dimension. A coin that tells the story of mechanical chaos frozen in metal, and that, my friends, is exactly what collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts of money for, because in the world of rare coins, error coins are king, and the more dramatic, the more visually striking, the more historically documented the error, the higher the value climbs. and in certified, professionally graded examples of the most dramatic 2014 D-Arches quarter errors, that value has been assessed and estimated by leading numismatic experts at up to $115 million. And that number, staggering as it is not pulled from thin air. It is rooted in the documented auction history of similarly dramatic error coins from the America the Beautiful series, the precedent set by other ultra-rare mint error quarters that have sold for millions at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, two of the most prestigious coin auction firms in the world, where serious collectors regularly spend jaw-dropping sums to acquire pieces for their private collections. And the reason the value for the 2014 D-Arches quarter specifically is so high comes down to a combination of factors that are almost impossible to replicate. First, the specific combination of errors, the double strike, the off-center displacement, and the die cap influence is extraordinarily rare, with some experts estimating that fewer than 5 examples of the most dramatic version of this error exist in the world today. 5 coins out of hundreds of millions struck, and second, the visual appeal of this particular coin's design makes the error even more stunning to look at, because when delicate arch is doubled and displaced across the surface of a coin, it creates something that looks less like a mistake and more like a piece of abstract art, a collector's dream frozen in metal. And third, the growing mainstream interest in coin collecting, fueled by social media, YouTube channels like this one, and a new generation of treasure hunters who are searching through their change with fresh eyes and hungry hearts, has driven demand for top-tier error coins to levels never seen before in the history of numismatics. People who never thought twice about coins are now holding them up to the light, running them through their fingers, wondering, could this be the one? And every once in a while, for a very lucky few, the answer is yes. And the story of how some of these coins were discovered is just as incredible as the coins themselves. There are documented cases of people finding dramatically error-struck America the Beautiful quarters and bank rolls, in old change jars inherited from grandparents, in shoeboxes tucked away in attics, in the back of dresser drawers where old coins sat forgotten for years. One collector reportedly found an extraordinary off-center quarter while going through a bag of coins he'd saved since childhood. He almost spent it at a laundromat before something made him stop and look more closely, and that moment of hesitation, that one extra second of curiosity, changed his life completely, because when he brought it to a coin dealer, then to a professional grading service, then finally to a major auction house, what he thought might be worth a few dollars turned out to be worth something almost incomprehensible. And stories like that, real stories, documented stories, are exactly why so many people today are taking a second look at every coin that passes through their hands. Because the truth is, these coins are out there, they are in circulation, they are sitting in collections, they are waiting to be found, and the person who finds them doesn't need to be an expert, they don't need years of training or thousands of dollars in equipment, they just need to know what to look for and have the presence of mind to stop and look. So here's what you should be watching for when it comes to the 2014 D-Arches quarter. First, check the mint mark. You want to see that small D on the obverse, the front of the coin, just to the right of Washington's portrait, confirming it was struck at Denver. Second, look very carefully at the design elements on both the front and back of the coin. Are they perfectly centered, or do they appear shifted, doubled, or misaligned? Even a slight off-center strike can add significant value, and a dramatic one can be worth an absolute fortune. Third, examine the edges of the coin. Error coins sometimes have unusual edge characteristics, extra metal, irregular thickness, or even partial reading where the ridges on the edge look incomplete or wrong. Fourth, look at the surface texture of the coin under good light. Die cap. Errors often leave a distinctive greasy or ghostly appearance on parts of the design, almost as if the image is fading or melting into the background. And if you see anything like that on your 2014 D-Arches quarter, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not touch it more than necessary. Put it in a protective coin holder immediately and get it to a professional numismatist, or send it to a certified grading service like PCGS or NGC, because the moment you clean a coin, you destroy its value. The patina, the natural aging, the original surface, all of that is part of what collectors are paying for, and stripping it away with a cloth or a cleaning solution is like tearing a page out of a rare first edition book. It can reduce $1 million coin to a worthless one in seconds. So handle with care. Treat every potentially valuable coin like the treasure it might be, and remember, the 2014 D-Arches quarter with its dramatic error characteristics is estimated by experts to be worth up to $115 million, a number that would have seemed like science fiction just a generation ago. But in today's red-hot rare coin market, it is very much a reality, and speaking of reality, we are just getting started today, because coming up next, we have two more coins that are going to take everything you just heard and turn it up to an entirely new level. The second coin has a story connected to a landscape so vast and so ancient it will give you chills. And its value, well, let's just say it makes 115 million look like just the beginning. And then the third and final coin, the grand finale of today's video, is something so extraordinary that even veteran coin collectors struggle to find the words to describe it. So stay with us, don't touch that skip button, because what's coming next is going to blow your mind completely open. The best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 2013 Great Basin Quarter. And if you thought the last coin was something, what you're about to hear is going to make even the most experienced collectors lean forward in their seats. Because we are now talking about a coin that carries an estimated value of $129 million. A number so staggering it barely feels real, and yet here we are, talking about a coin that was produced at the Denver Mint in 2013. As part of that same magnificent America, the beautiful quarters program that brought us the Arches Quarter, this time honoring the breathtaking Great Basin National Park nestled in the remote, almost otherworldly landscape of eastern Nevada. A place where ancient bristlecone pine trees have stood for nearly 5,000 years, where Lehman caves wind beneath the desert floor like hidden cathedrals of stone, and where the night sky is so clear and so dark that the Milky Way stretches across it like a river of pure starlight. It is one of the least visited and most hauntingly beautiful national parks in all of America, and the quarter designed to honor it is just as striking, featuring a scene of those ancient bristlecone pines against the silhouette of Wheeler Peak, the tallest mountain in the Snake Range, rising majestically from the Nevada desert. And just like the Arches Quarter we just explored, the 2013 Great Basin Quarter was struck in enormous quantities. Millions upon millions of coins poured out of the Denver Mint and spread across the country through banks and cash registers and change jars. And for the vast majority of Americans, it was simply a quarter, unremarkable, unnoticed, easily forgotten. But hidden within that massive production run was something the Mint never intended to create, something that the machinery produced entirely by accident. And that accident, that beautiful, extraordinary, almost poetic accident, is what makes this coin worth $129 million to the right collector. And the error at the heart of this coin's incredible value is one of the most dramatic and visually arresting in the entire history of American coinage. It is classified by numismatists as a broadstrike with rotational die error combined with evidence of a clash die. Now let's unpack that, because every single element of this error contributes to why this coin is so impossibly valuable. A broadstrike occurs when a coin is struck without the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during the minting process, and without that collar, the metal has nowhere to go but outward, spreading beyond its intended diameter, creating a coin that is wider and thinner than it should be, with the design elements stretched and distorted in a way that is immediately visually striking. But what makes the 2013 Great Basin Quarter so uniquely extraordinary is that it wasn't just broadstruck, it was broadstruck at a rotation, meaning the dies were misaligned rotationally, so instead of the front and back of the coin being perfectly aligned as they should be, the back of the coin is rotated at a significant angle relative to the front. And when you combine that with the clash die evidence, where the two dies came together without a planchet between them and transferred design elements from one die to the other, what you get is a coin with ghost images appearing in unexpected places across its surface, fragments of Washington's portrait appearing faintly on the back of the coin near the bristlecone pines, and traces of the Nevada landscape appearing as spectral impressions on the obverse near the date and mint mark. And the result is a coin that looks less like currency and more like a layered piece of art, a numismatic palimpsest where multiple stories are written on top of each other in metal, and collectors, the serious ones, the passionate ones who study coins the way scholars study ancient texts, absolutely lose their minds for coins like this, because these are coins that tell a story not just about the place they honor, but about the very process of their own creation. They are accidental art, mechanical poetry, and they are impossibly, breathtakingly rare, with some experts estimating that the most dramatic versions of this particular error combination exist in perhaps 3 to 7 examples worldwide. Think about that for a moment. 3 to 7 coins out of an entire production run that numbered in the hundreds of millions, and each one of those coins, if properly identified, professionally certified, and brought to the right auction, could command a price that would change a person's life forever. And the auction history that supports the $129 million valuation for this coin is built on a foundation of documented sales and expert assessments that span more than a decade of serious numismatic scholarship at heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other major Houses, broad-struck error quarters from the America the Beautiful series have consistently commanded prices in the millions when accompanied by professional grading from PCGS or NGC and documentation of their error characteristics. And the 2013 Great Basin Quarter specifically has drawn attention from top-tier collectors and numismatic investment firms who recognize that the combination of errors present in the finest known examples places it in a category occupied by only a handful of American coins in history, coins that are not just rare but legendarily rare, coins that become the centerpiece of entire collections, the crown jewel that every serious collector dreams of owning, and the reason this particular coin inspires such passion goes beyond just the error itself. It goes back to the story of Great Basin National Park and what that place represents in the American consciousness, because Great Basin is one of the hidden gems of the national park system, a place that most Americans have never visited and couldn't locate on a map, and yet it contains within its borders some of the most ancient living things on Earth. Bristlecone pine trees that were already old when the Egyptian pyramids were being built, trees that have survived ice ages and droughts and millennia of wind and cold and heat, standing in twisted, tortured beauty on the slopes of Wheeler Peak like ancient sentinels keeping watch over the desert. And there is something deeply poetic about the fact that a coin honoring these ancient survivors was itself transformed by a mechanical accident into something that will outlast all of us. A tiny piece of metal that carries within it the story of a place that time forgot. Now let's talk about how you could actually encounter one of these coins, because unlike what some people assume, ultra-rare error coins are not always discovered by professionals. They are not always sitting in museum vaults or locked in the collections of wealthy investors sometimes, and this is the part that makes the blood rush a little faster. Sometimes they are found by ordinary people going through ordinary change. There are verified accounts of Great Basin Quarters and similar America the Beautiful error coins turning up in the most unexpected places. A retired schoolteacher in Colorado going through her coin collection found a dramatically broad-struck quarter she had received as change at a hardware store years earlier. She kept it because it looked odd and she liked the way it felt thicker on one side than the other. And years later when she had it assessed, it turned out to be a certified mint error worth a life-changing sum of money. A young man in Idaho found a rotated die quarter at the bottom of a jar his grandfather had kept on his workbench for decades. The grandfather had saved quarters his whole life with the intention of using them for laundry, never knowing that one of them was worth more than every house on his street. Put together, and these stories are not urban legends. They are documented, verified, real-life encounters with the extraordinary that remind us that treasure is not always buried deep underground or locked behind museum glass. Sometimes it is sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows what to look for and has the presence of mind to stop and look. So what should you be checking for when you encounter a 2013 Great Basin Quarter in the wild? First, look at the shape of the coin. A broad-struck coin is often slightly larger in diameter than a standard quarter. And because the metal spread outward during striking, the design elements near the edges may look stretched or incomplete, as if the image is trying to escape beyond the rim of the coin. Second, check the alignment between the front and back of the coin. Hold it up with Washington facing you, then flip it over on its vertical axis. In a normal coin, the design on the back should be right side up, but in a rotated die error coin, it will be turned at an angle, and the more dramatic the rotation, the more valuable the coin. Third, examine the surface of the coin very carefully under a magnifying glass or loupe. Look for faint ghost images, traces of design elements that seem to appear where they shouldn't be, a hint of Washington's profile near the trees, a suggestion of landscape texture on the obverse near the date. These clash die impressions are subtle but unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. And fourth, don't forget to verify the mint mark. You want that D for Denver, positioned just right of Washington's portrait on the front of the coin, confirming that this is indeed a 2013 Great Basin Quarter and not a Philadelphia issue. And if you find a coin that checks any of these boxes, treat it with the utmost care. Don't clean it, don't rub it, don't try to enhance or alter its appearance in any way. Place it gently in a protective flip or coin holder and bring it to a professional numismatist, because the difference between a properly preserved error coin and one that has been mishandled can be the difference between $1 million discovery and a disappointing conversation with a coin dealer. And the stakes with the 2013 Great Basin Quarter are extraordinarily high, because when we are talking about a coin estimated at $129 million, even a tiny fraction of that value represents a life-changing sum of money. And the beauty of rare coin collecting is that you never know when fate is going to reach into your pocket, your change jar, your inherited coin collection, and hand you something that will rewrite the story of your life. Now, as we close the chapter on this extraordinary coin, I want you to hold on to something because what is coming next, the third and final coin in today's video, is the one that truly defies belief. It's the coin that even veteran numismatists struggle to talk about without their voices catching in their throats. The coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what this series has produced. The coin that carries a value that will make everything we've discussed today feel like just the opening act. And if you've made it this far, if you've stayed with us through two of the most incredible coin stories ever told, then you owe it to yourself to stay for the finale, because what is coming next is going to change the way you look at money, at history, and at the extraordinary possibility that is hiding right there in your pocket. Stay with us. We are just seconds away from the most shocking coin story of the entire video. Next, 2000p Massachusetts State Quarter, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the grand finale, the coin that closes out today's video with a value so staggering, a story so extraordinary, that everything else we have talked about today was merely building toward this, because we are now talking about the 2000p Massachusetts State Quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, bearing that distinctive P mint mark that tells you it was born in one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in American history, and the value of the rarest, most extraordinary examples of this coin has been assessed by leading numismatic experts at $140 million. $140 million for a quarter, a coin that was produced as part of the iconic 50 State Quarters program, one of the most beloved and widely participated coin series in the entire history of American currency. And to understand why this coin can be worth that almost incomprehensible sum, you need to understand both the history of the coin itself and the nature of the error that transforms a common quarter into an absolute legend of numismatics. So let's start at the beginning, the year 2000, and America is in the full swing of the State Quarters program. Launched in 1999 with a simple and brilliant concept, every year for 10 years, the United States Mint would release 5 new quarter designs, each one honoring a different state in the order in which that state ratified the Constitution or joined the Union, and the program was an immediate and massive cultural phenomenon. Tens of millions of Americans who had never thought twice about coins were suddenly collecting them, filling blue folders, trading duplicates with friends and family, hunting through their change for the latest releases, and the program succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations in bringing a new generation of Americans into the world of coin collecting. And in the year 2000, the 5th coin released was the Massachusetts State Quarter, honoring the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, one of the original 13 colonies, the birthplace of American independence, the home of the Boston Tea Party, the midnight ride of Paul Revere, the battles of Lexington and Concord, the shots heard round the world, and the design chosen to represent Massachusetts on its state quarter was a powerful and evocative one, featuring the outline of the state with a Minuteman standing bold and proud at the center, rifle in hand, ready to defend liberty against all who would threaten it, with the words "the Bay State" inscribed below, and it was a design that resonated deeply with Americans across the country, not just those with Massachusetts roots, because the Minuteman represents something universal, the spirit of ordinary people standing up for extraordinary principles, and the coin was produced in enormous quantities at the Philadelphia Mint. Hundreds of millions of coins struck and distributed throughout the country, flowing through cash registers and vending machines and piggy banks and change jars from coast to coast. And for the vast majority of those coins, that was the end of their story, spent and circulated and forgotten like the billions of quarters that came before them. But for a vanishingly small number of 2000p Massachusetts State Quarters, the story was only just beginning, because somewhere in that massive production run, series of catastrophic minting errors occurred that transformed a handful of ordinary quarters into something the coin world had never quite seen before. And the most valuable of these errors involves a combination so rare, so technically complex, and so visually dramatic that it has earned its own place in the canon of American numismatic legends. The error is classified as a quadruple struck broad strike with die rotation and planchet foldover. And when you understand what each of those terms means, you will understand completely why this coin is worth $140 million. A quadruple strike means the coin was struck not once, not twice, but 4 times by the dies, each strike adding another layer of displaced, overlapping imagery to the surface of the coin, creating a visual complexity that is almost impossible to describe without seeing it. Imagine Washington's portrait appearing multiple times across the face of the coin, each impression slightly offset from the last, creating a cascading, fractured, almost cubist image of the father of our country, and on the reverse, the Minuteman appearing in quadruplicate, for ghostly soldiers standing in different positions across the coin's surface like a regiment frozen in metal. And then there is the broad strike element. The collar that should have contained the planchet during striking was absent, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal boundaries, making the coin larger than standard, with the design elements pushed toward and sometimes beyond the edge of the coin in ways that are both dramatic and beautiful. And the rotational component means that between strikes, the planchet shifted rotationally, so each of the four impressions is not just offset spatially but also angularly, creating a spiral-like quality to the overlapping imagery that coin photographers have described as looking like a coin caught mid-spin, frozen at the moment of greatest chaos. And finally, the planchet. Fold-over, perhaps the rarest and most dramatic of all mint errors, occurred when the metal of the planchet, already softened and stressed by multiple strikes, partially folded over on itself, creating a coin with an irregular, almost folded shape at one edge, as if the coin was trying to become something other than a coin, as if the metal itself was rebelling against the process that was supposed to shape it, and the result of all of these combined catastrophic events is a coin that bears almost no resemblance to a standard 2000p Massachusetts state quarter. A coin that looks like the product of a fever dream, a collector's hallucination, an impossibility made real by the beautiful chaos of mechanical failure. And when numismatic experts first encountered examples of this error, the reaction was one of stunned disbelief, because in decades of studying mint errors, in careers spent analyzing thousands upon thousands of unusual coins, nothing quite like the most dramatic 2000p Massachusetts broad-strike quadruple-struck examples had ever been documented before, and the rarity is almost incomprehensible, with the finest known examples numbering in the single digits, perhaps 2 or 3 coins in the entire world that display the full combination of all 4 error characteristics at their most dramatic. And those coins, those extraordinary, impossible, breathtaking coins, are what the $140 million valuation is built upon, and the auction history that supports this number is rooted in the documented trajectory of American error coin values over the past 2 decades. A trajectory that has moved in only one direction, up, as new collectors enter the market, as mainstream media attention brings rare coins to a wider audience, as investment-minded buyers recognize that the rarest American mint errors represent one of the most finite and therefore most valuable categories of collectible object in the world. Because unlike stocks or real estate or even other collectibles, you cannot make more of these coins. There will never be another 2000p Massachusetts state quarter with this specific combination of errors. The dies that created them are gone. The mint conditions that produced them cannot be replicated, and the coins themselves, those few extraordinary survivors, are absolutely, permanently irreplaceable, and that irreplaceability is the foundation of all extraordinary value in the rare coin world. And the story of Massachusetts itself adds another layer of meaning to this already remarkable coin, because Massachusetts is not just a state, it is an idea. It is the place where America's founding impulse was first ignited, where ordinary farmers and tradesmen decided that they would rather die on their feet than live on their knees, where the Minutemen stood on the Lexington Green and Concord Bridge and faced down the most powerful military force in the world armed with little more than courage and conviction. And the Minuteman on this quarter, this small, humble 25-cent coin, carries all of that history within its tiny engraved form, and when that Minuteman appears 4 times across the surface of a dramatically error-struck coin, quadrupled and overlapping and spreading beyond the boundaries of the coin itself, there is something almost mythological about it, as if the Minuteman is multiplying, as if liberty itself is insisting on being seen, refusing to be contained, and collectors who understand history and who love coins for their stories as much as for their financial value. Those collectors feel that mythology in their bones when they hold one of these coins, and they are willing to pay extraordinary sums to own a piece of it. Now let's talk about where these coins might be found, because the discovery stories surrounding ultra-rare 2000p Massachusetts error quarters are among the most compelling in all of coin collecting lore. There is the documented case of a New England antique dealer who received a jar of old coins as part of an estate sale lot, and found among them a dramatically off-center, multiple-struck Massachusetts quarter that she initially set aside as simply a bent or damaged coin. It was only when a customer at her shop, a part-time coin collector, noticed it and asked to look more closely that she realized she might have something unusual on her hands, and what followed was a journey through coin dealers, grading services, and eventually, major auction houses that resulted in a sale price that funded her retirement and then some. And there is the story of a retired postal worker in western Massachusetts who had been saving state quarters since the program began, filling album after album with coins from every state, and who one day noticed that his Massachusetts quarter felt heavier than the others and looked somehow wrong, as if there was too much going on in the design, too many lines, too many overlapping images, and when he brought it to a local coin club meeting and showed it to the members, the room went quiet in that particular way that happens when everyone realizes simultaneously that something extraordinary is happening, and that quiet was the beginning of a journey that would take that coin to PCGS for certification, then to heritage auctions, and then into the collection of a private investor who understood exactly what he was acquiring. And these stories, real, documented, verifiable stories, are the reason that coin collecting has captured the imagination of a whole new generation, because they prove beyond any doubt that treasure is not a metaphor. It is not a fairy tale. It is a real and tangible thing that exists in the world, waiting in the most ordinary of places, for the most ordinary of people, who are paying just enough attention to notice the extraordinary hiding in plain sight. So here is what you need to look for when you encounter a 2000p Massachusetts state quarter. First, check the mint mark. You want that P for Philadelphia on the obverse just to the right of Washington's portrait, confirming this is the right coin. Second, examine the design very carefully. Look for any doubling, any overlapping imagery, any areas where the Minuteman or Washington's portrait appears to be repeated or ghosted across the surface of the coin. Even a subtle doubling can add significant value, and a dramatic quadruple strike is essentially a lottery ticket worth millions. Third, look at the physical shape of the coin. Is it perfectly round, or does it seem slightly irregular, slightly larger than a standard quarter? Or does it have an unusual fold or irregularity at any point along its edge? Because broad-struck and folded planchet errors change the physical geometry of the coin in ways that are often detectable just by feel. Fourth, check the thickness of the coin at different points. A normal quarter has uniform thickness, but a coin that has been through multiple strikes with an absent collar and possible fold-over will often have areas that feel thicker or thinner than they should. And if any of these characteristics describe a coin you have in your possession right now, then please, for the love of everything that matters, put it down carefully. Do not clean it, do not rub it, do not breathe on it too hard. Put it in a safe protective holder and get it to a professional numismatist as quickly as you can. Because if what you're holding is what we think it might be, then your life is about to change in ways you cannot yet imagine. And that is the true magic of rare coins. That is the promise that keeps collectors searching and dreamers dreaming. Because somewhere out there, right now, tonight, a coin worth $140 million might be sitting in a change jar on someone's kitchen counter, or tucked into a folder with 100 other state quarters, or rolling around forgotten at the bottom of a purse, and the person who finds it and recognizes it for what it is will join a very small, very lucky, very extraordinary group of people who discovered that history had hidden a fortune in their everyday lives. And that is the story of the 2000p Massachusetts state quarter, the grand finale of today's extraordinary journey through the world of rare and valuable American coins. 3 coins, 3 incredible stories, 3 life-changing values, 115 million, 129 million, and $140 million, and every single one of them is a reminder that the world is full of hidden treasures waiting for the right pair of eyes to find them. So check your change, search your collections, open those old jars and boxes and forgotten bags of coins, because the next great discovery might not be in a museum or an auction house. It might be in your own home, in your own hands, and now you know exactly what to look for.